Welcome to TWIN, the World Innovation Network. I'm Rob Wolcott. TWIN is a global connective of innovation and growth leaders from over 30 countries who pursue progress with purpose. Throughout the pandemic, we've all been challenged in various ways, our families, our communities, our countries, but some have navigated better than others. Over the past year, I've reached out to our Twinians all around the world to understand how they're navigating these challenging times. One of the common denominators I've found from companies, countries, organizations that have managed through more effectively has been a near-term commitment and action and a long-term vision. The ability to marshal resources in the immediate term to solve problems, to agilely adjust to the rapidly changing environment, but within the context of a larger vision for the future. Few countries in the world, I've found, have done a better job of this than Serbia. I'm so pleased to be joined today by Serbia's Prime Minister, Ana Brnabić. In partnership with Serbia's President, Aleksander Vučić, this country has not only impressively, quantifiably managed the crisis better than most, they've also continued to pursue a grand vision for a prosperous future. Ana Brnabić, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Rob.
I want to start, but before we get to your vision for Serbia, which is extraordinary, and the pandemic and all those topics, I want to go back in time a little bit. It's rather well known that you never expected to be in government service, much less in the seat of the Prime Minister of Serbia. Tell us a little bit about your unexpected journey.
Yes, well, first of all, Rob, please feel free to call me Ana, because I know my family name is a little bit difficult. I joined the government back in 2016, straight from the private sector. I was in the consulting business before that. I was in the energy business as well. But I was always trying on the side to use my time to do something to help my country. So I was active in the NGO sector, in civil society organizations, trying to influence where my country is going, which was recognized by, at the time, the Prime Minister, Aleksander Vučić, who is currently the president of the country, who invited me to join his government as the Minister of Public Administration and Local Government. So I accepted the invitation, started as the Minister of Public Administration, worked on a number of projects, most importantly, actually the reform of public administration in a way to introduce e-government, or completely, fully digitize our public administration in order to make it available to citizens and businesses 24/7, and really make it much more efficient, fight corruption, do everything that I kind of dreamed about when, just as a citizen and someone who's in the private sector. And then basically about 9 months later, we had regular presidential elections in Serbia. Aleksander Vučić ran for the president. He won, he became the president, so we needed to reshuffle the government. And as the president, he nominated me as the prime minister, and I got the support in the parliament, and that's how I ended up being the prime minister in 2017. So it was quite an unexpected journey. Yes.
Well, I love the fact that you brought your own perspective as someone from the private sector, as a citizen, where you said, what would I want to see from the government as a citizen? And I have to say, Ana, every time I'm waiting in a line or having to fill out a form and send it via mail, I'm thinking which century those people are in. And then when I interact with governments like your own in Serbia or Estonia or some other parts of the world where you're a little bit ahead of us, to be honest, it's quite exhilarating. So I want to shift now to this past 4 years, the vision you've been building for Serbia with your fellow citizens. Tell us about your vision for Serbia.
My vision for Serbia, I think, is quite straightforward. My key goal when I became the prime minister was to actually start that transformation from the economy, which is mostly based on investments, and that's mostly labor-intensive investments into the economy, which is innovation-driven, knowledge-based, technology-driven, in order to catch up on the missed times of Serbia, and really just influence much more dynamic growth and development in Serbia. That's from kind of economic point of view, but also quality of life point of view. From the point of view, again, of public administration and the government, I want to have a government either on the national level or local level of public administration, which is, as I said, available to citizens and businesses 24/7, 365 days a week. There is no reason why the governments in the 21st century, with all of this technology, can't be available to people. Why do you have to wait 8 o'clock in the morning up to 4 p.m. to do something with the government? Why just not be available to citizens all the time? And finally, politically, but also in terms of values and quality of life, I want to see Serbia in the European Union, sharing all of the basic European values, but also Serbia where people want to live and where other people, foreigners, want to come. I've seen so many other countries also in this region who have actually joined the European Union, and their citizens being ecstatic about joining the EU just because it's going to be easier for them to leave and live somewhere else. I want Serbia, which is, once it becomes member of the EU, people will be happy because it's member of the EU and want to stay, and some other people from the EU will want to come and live in Serbia. That's my vision.
Well, with high value added jobs and the climate that you have and all the other benefits, I think you've got a good possibility that you'll have new people moving to Serbia in the future. So you and the president created this vision for the country approximately 4 years ago. What has been most important from your perspective to convert vision into reality?
I have to say, and again, as you say, and you refer to us as dynamic duo. That's exactly how I see it as well. When I became the prime minister in 2017 as his nominee, my two key priorities in my manifesto for the government and for the country in the next 4 years were digitization and education. And I have to say that 95% of Serbia laughed. They were skeptical. It did not fit with the common vision of Serbia, even for our people, even for our citizens. So everyone basically laughed, but besides from the president, Aleksander Vučić. So in my case, the political support and the trust and the belief that Serbia can become that kind of a country and we can become that kind of a nation was really absolutely instrumental. Now, fast forward 4 years later, everyone is talking about digitization. I think digitization is perhaps the word which is in Serbia most commonly used out of all the countries in the world. Everyone is talking about it. So again, that kind of a change would not be possible without the support and belief coming basically from the president, who also leads the majority in the parliament.
Well, congratulations on that. And a word like digitization, words matter. And if people are using them on a daily basis, it focuses their attention. I see that as one of the great powers of being in a significant political office, because you can use a word over and over and over again. And there's something about human beings, we start to pick it up and it changes our attention, it changes our perspective. In this process, what would you say has been the most challenging aspect of making widespread change happen?
Two things. I think first, skepticism. People just do not, believing that this is something that we can do. People thinking that these kind of reforms, that kind of development path, is basically reserved for more developed nation, richer nation, that we can't do it. And it took us a while, at least I think 2.5 years, to get people to believe in themselves and their country, that we can actually do this. And secondly, it was basically something that is, I think, a weakness of all public administration and governments throughout the world. and that is preserving status quo. Governments, public administration don't like to change. They don't like to experiment, and people find it difficult to innovate, and much more so, obviously, than in the private sector. And so that was one of the biggest challenges as well. Technology itself wasn't a problem. People were the problem. People changing themselves, that was kind of the key stumbling block. And again, once they saw that that change is possible, that in fact that change enables them to have a better quality of their work, the workplace, which is more fun, more interactive, then that helped speed things up with the reforms.
Well, Anna, it certainly turned out to be fortuitous that you and your colleagues have transitioned to a more digital form of government, because as we all transitioned into the pandemic over a year ago, that's given you capabilities that you wouldn't have had just a few years ago. And I'll underscore, as many news agencies around the world have, that Serbia is recognized for having done better through the pandemic than most other European countries and many countries in the world. Vaccination rates, relatively high GDP results through the pandemic. What do you think other countries can learn from Serbia's experience through COVID?
Firstly, that digitization is certainly paying off. That's the way to go. And when I say digitization, many people ask, what does it really mean, especially when you're in the government? And I would, in my view, that's kind of, there are three parts to digitization. Digitization of public administration, meaning introduction of e-government, electronic government. Second one is digitization of the economy as much as possible, meaning that you really place a lot of emphasis on supporting research and development, startup companies, innovative companies, investing more money into science, all of these things in order to increase the competitiveness of your economy. And the third aspect of digitization in that respect also is full digitization of education, meaning that again you have to do this whole reform of education, because the old way of teaching kids, with the classic textbooks, the classic manner of, pen and paper, it's so outdated for children. The school becomes boring. That's not interactive. They don't get a chance. How I put it is, to learn how to think. You're basically using your old, outdated education system to teach them what to think, and you should be teaching them how to think, because again, today we don't really know what kind of jobs they will be doing. We don't even know how to prepare them for it. So the only thing we know is that we need to teach them how to think in terms of algorithms, logically, how to resolve problems, not to be afraid to resolve problems. And that's all kind of digitization of education. So again, as you said, what we've done since 2016 really paid off. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We were able, thanks to e-government services, to provide most of the services to citizens as though the pandemic is not happening. So, for example, enrollment of children in kindergartens or schools was able to proceed normally, because now it's completely electronically. People don't, the children, their parents, they don't have to come to kindergarten or school to get enrolled. It's all done electronically. As I said, paying taxes, sorting out some of the administrative issues, all of it done electronically. So it paid off. Obviously, we did not have time to kind of complete the reform. So there were still things that you have to do in pen and paper, but much less so than back in 2015, for example. Thanks to everything that we have done to support kind of digital and IT and, our IT sector, ICT sector overall, the share in our GDP grew to almost the agriculture, to almost the same level as agriculture, which is unbelievable. And it continued growing. It was not at the rate which back in 2017, 2018, but still it grew, and so it contributed to the more a stronger economy, less susceptible to pandemic and crisis such as the one that was caused by COVID-19, making it more for us, making us more resilient.
Well, Anna, that's one of the reasons I was very interested in speaking with you and learning more about the Serbian case. As we look back in history, you see countries that navigated through challenges a little better than others, and it's often a good idea to go find out why. So within Twin, within our global community, one of our longtime members is Grzegorz Kolodko, the former deputy prime minister of Poland and also an economist. And he and his colleagues navigated the transition out of the Eastern Bloc and the economic structures that helped to support Poland straight through the global financial crisis. And they did far better during that turn. And I would say that you've done far better in Serbia with providing internet access across the country. We have something in the United States we know as the digital divide. It's one of the most difficult problems we have, with one of the most simple answers, which would be to just provide high-speed access to everyone. There's a little bit of cost there, but when you provide that kind of access and tool set, you really do support people's ability to go out and find opportunities, to build new lives, to pursue prosperity. And it's really something that I hope our country, the United States, can learn from your experience in Serbia. So let's shift to economy generally. What are some of the technologies and sectors that you've prioritized for the country?
Well, certainly, the IT sector I saw as our greatest potential. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019, we were the startup genome as kind of the go-to report for the startup ecosystems in the world. Actually, for the first time, covered Serbia, and we are currently ranked amongst the top 10 countries in the world in as much as three categories. One is affordable talent because of quite good STEM education, and we are still further improving it. The number two is blockchain, and number three is video gaming. Now, we are pushing that very hard for the future. Again, one other extremely important component to this story is artificial intelligence. And my team pushed very hard, drafted the AI strategy for Serbia, which was adopted by the end of last year. We have, we are only 26th country in the world to adopt AI strategy, and the first country in this part of Europe to adopt the strategy. And in next month, in April, we are going to establish the AI Institute. So that is what I see is the future for Serbia. There are many other sectors that are quite strong, but what I want to continue pushing steadily is, again, investment in research and development, innovation, trying to gain the competitive advantage that we actually have, but we did not really made a full use out of it in the past.
You mentioned earlier citizens connecting with government online around the world, citizens of Serbia. This, of course, references the Serbian diaspora. And one of the things that I was intrigued by in your comments in other venues is your approach, your government's approach to talent and the diaspora. Many countries lament the brain drain, which is a real thing in many parts of the world. But you actually take a different perspective. You talk about something about the circular flow of talent. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, brain drain obviously is an issue in Serbia, and we're trying to tackle it. But if you really look at it, and what I said, and I have to tell you that I was very much ridiculed here in Serbia because of it. But still, I think that people do not yet understand how important this is. But listen, I think brain drain is actually a good thing. It can work to an advantage of a country. Because people are bound to leave. When they leave, they for to get new experiences, get new knowledge, learn about new technologies, get meet other people, and so it's not bad. I mean, you as a society, as a country, you wouldn't move anywhere unless people went abroad and saw something different and then brought it back home and tried to implement that change back home. So, in my view, people leaving Serbia is not that much of a problem. I think people not coming back is a problem. So, brain drain is not necessarily a bad thing. What we need to do as a country is turn it into circular migration. So really, I think the problem there is if people don't want to come back or don't want to invest back home in the country. And so we are trying to really make it really the issue about circular migration rather than trying to prevent people to leave. And so we have done several things. One of the key things that we have done is that we have, as a government, established together with our diaspora organizations the organization called Returning Point to Serbia. And so we are in touch with our diaspora. If they want to invest, we help them invest. If they want to come back, and they don't really know where to begin with searching for a job or their ID cards or healthcare cards. They just don't know how to start their returning to Serbia. We are helping them with that, and I have to say that it works quite well thus far. We have some fantastic people who came back. Um, some of the people who want to come back will be involved in our new AI institute. So that is where you see the benefit from circular migration rather than
Yeah.
really just being frustrated about the brain drain.
Absolutely. And, countries that do that well benefit enormously. If you think about all of the leadership in Silicon Valley that is originally from India and how they have contributed, even if they don't move back to India, and some have, but even if they don't move back to India, they invest, they engage, they build bridges and opportunities for their colleagues from India. Country like Israel, Estonia, others, New Zealand has thought very hard about how to engage that diaspora. And by the way, Anna, I like to refer to the other side of diaspora as reaspora. So I think when you can figure out that circular flow, you'll have an enormous competitive advantage because all the Serbians I've met, and we have a great Serbian population here in Chicago, Illinois, all the Serbians I've met tend to be quite patriotic. They really love their country. And so if they leave and they make money and they generate take on positions of authority, if you're reaching out to them, they're going to respond, and that's going to be better for all of us.
And we have actually we also have this fantastic diaspora organization in the Silicon Valley. It's called Serbian Entrepreneurs. They are amazing and they help us so much, not just by investing in Serbia, but also kind of teaching us, my team, myself included, about what we need to do to make Serbia, to make the vision that I said in the beginning into a reality. And they're very knowledgeable, very experienced. And again, I mean, if we did not have them in the Silicon Valley, I do not think that we would be able to make all of these reforms in just 4 years.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add, as important, and they are, as the foreign service staff is, the foreign ministry staff all over the world from any country, and they are really essential. There's an additional whole ecosystem of representatives of our countries, whether it's Serbia, the United States, anyone. And those are our citizens who live and work elsewhere or who are descended from those who came from your country. And they have a commitment that I find when individuals live far away from home, they have a heightened sense of commitment and desire to reconnect. And so oftentimes we find, and I see this in our Twinians who live in other countries from many places in the world, they become the they become the representative, the advocate on behalf of their home country every day in their professional and personal lives. So, what are some of your priorities that you would like to see for Serbia over the next few years?
Certainly, we are going to continue pushing in this direction. So again, the innovation, the research and development, the science and technology, the startups, just empowering people to do something differently and not be afraid to innovate and actually innovate from Serbia. Also creativity, and also rebranding Serbia as a creative place and creative destination, and that is going to continue to be our focus. But now I have to say that key priority is certainly it's going to be on the green transition and environmental protection. And I'll tell you why. Not just because of the environmental protection, which is obviously hugely important for the generations that are coming, but because, again, if you want to be a country of innovation and creativity, no one will come to a country which, for example, has a dirty grid, or which whose majority of electricity comes from fossil fuels, So that,
Right.
is again, similarly to where the competitiveness in the 21st century comes obviously from STEM and technology, but also from arts. That is where green transition comes in. I really see it as one whole. And now we are really pushing very, very hard into that direction as well.
Well, it's also quite complementary as a practical matter for energy, for technology, because, for instance, blockchain and certainly Bitcoin and others require a lot of energy, and people are quite correctly concerned about it. But I'm actually an optimist because I know a lot of people in the energy space, renewables, energy transition, and a key piece, the energy storage. And that is rapidly becoming better. Distributed energy generation, rapidly becoming better, and the ability to provide energy where and when it's needed, to produce and provide energy where and when it's needed. And if Serbia can take a leading role in experimentation and building out that capability, it unlocks so much more. Because ultimately, Anna, everything we're going to want to do and live in the future will have two ingredients: computational capabilities and energy. And if you can do both of those, you can live any life that you desire. So looking back, and we're coming
And
down
plus, just to add, and plus, Serbia has anywhere between 10 and 12% of worldwide lithium reserves. It's in the new mineral called Jadarit. It was discovered actually here in Serbia by Rio Tinto. And we hope to be able to start exploitation soon. So again, that lithium used in kind of batteries, electric vehicles, and all of that, it can be used in Serbia only if we really start with the energy transition.
Well, congratulations, and what a blessing! Because imagine if Serbia had that great reserve and had exploited it a decade ago, you could end up with the resource curse that so many
Exactly.
countries have. But because you've built this digital society and these capabilities for value add, now that just becomes an accelerant for the future of the country, and that's quite exciting. So let's take a turn for just a second. So much success over the past 4 years, but what's something that did not work? What's something you said, boy, we really thought that was gonna happen and it didn't, or boy, we wanted to go this way and it went that way? What's something that did not work, and what can we learn from that?
I would say, I am a little bit frustrated with how slowly our environmental protection progress is going. And again, you could clearly see there, and I said, political support and political investment is so important that you could really see that, from the highest level between, the president and myself, we were focused on some other reforms that we did not push this aspect so hard, and that's one thing that keeps me awake at night. So, to be honest, I think that we were supposed to already by now do much more in that respect. but we are going to continue pushing now for that. In terms of digital, what we haven't done yet is digitization of our healthcare. And if we actually did that, we would be much even still further prepared for pandemics such as COVID. And that's a huge task ahead of us that we still have to do. We are a little bit late. I mean, we obviously set a very, very ambitious target for full digitization of our education. We are a little bit late with that. I was hoping that we are going to end in 2021. We're probably going to end in 2022 or 2023, but not everything worked perfectly. But I would be lying if I said that I'm not proud with what we have achieved and what we have done. And lastly, I mean, really, it's up to the people. And I have this fantastic team of people. And all of it is really about people and empowering people to change things.
It is, though, a great situation to have achieved so much, to have the ability then to share very publicly the things that we need to do better, because that makes us all better. Anna, one of the things that global press has been talking about is the vaccination strategy, the vaccination program in Serbia. Tell us about how that is rolled out.
Well, I think it's quite successful, and I cannot hide my satisfaction that Serbia got in the all global news about the success of the vaccination campaign. That's really due to, again, two key reasons. One is that we treated the vaccination as a healthcare issue and not as a political or geopolitical issue. So we've started very early on discussing with all of the vaccine producers the possibilities of purchasing those vaccines. It was the highest priority of our country, our nation. It was led by President Vučić and supported by the entire government. And so we were the first country to sign contract, or amongst the first top five countries to sign contract with Pfizer. But at the same time, the first European country to sign contract with Chinese Sinopharm and Russian Sputnik. Currently we have 4 vaccines available in Serbia. Pfizer, BioNTech. We have AstraZeneca. We have Sputnik. We have Sinopharm. So it worked really well. And again, I think that vaccination was always supposed to be treated as a healthcare issue and not as a political issue. And as the only thing that mattered was that vaccines are actually safe and effective, and that's it. So that was the first part of our success. The second big part of our success again comes back to digitization. Vaccination, especially with different vaccines, is logistically very challenging because one vaccine needs to be preserved at -70, the other vaccine at -20, the third vaccine with a temperature between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. So quite logistically challenging. What worked for us is that we completely automatize the system. We have a system where it's easy for citizens to apply either online or through call center, but it's paperless. Really, there's no pen and paper. So they apply. We get all of the application. We can manage them with it's a centralized approach by which we then book the time when people should come get vaccinated. We even remind them when to get back for their second shot. And we can, for citizens, it's easy to apply. For us, it's extremely easy to manage the process, logistically answer those challenges, and also monitor on a real-time basis how the process is working. As the Prime Minister, I can check on the one click and get all the data, how many people vaccinated overall in that day, in that municipality, how many of them got their second shot, how many people applied, where from, and so it's quite easy to manage. So again, digitization paid off.
Well, and that's an extraordinary opportunity for Serbia, too, because undoubtedly, whether in the future it's another pandemic or some other sort of public health challenge, you've already had an experience and a system that sets you up to be ahead of the game. I want you to look back at your government journey so far and identify something that surprised you, good or bad, could be anything, something that you really didn't expect. What can we learn from it?
What surprised me, again, in a positive way, because I'm more of an optimist than pessimist, I tend to forget bad things, I have to admit, which is a fantastic quality when you're a prime minister. Otherwise, you would probably go insane. So, what surprised me was really, how people, when they saw the first results, changed. And when I saw, our first MPs in the parliament talking, very emotionally about digitization and e-government, I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. It was like a dream came true. So, people, when they see results, then they will follow, even though it's a big change, and that's fantastic to see.
Well, great. Your story of transitioning from private sector to public sector can be perhaps inspiring or instructive for others. What's one bit of advice you would give to people in the private sector who might be considering public service?
Do it. We need more people from the private sector in the public sector, and I think all over the world. I think that people coming from the private sector are generally, not as a rule, but generally more pragmatic, more efficient, more ready to change, and more believing in change, but much more pragmatic than people who are for ages in the government or in the public sector. And sometimes, what I've also learned is that in the public sector, in the public administration, time is almost this metaphysical category. So, if you do something today or tomorrow or in a month's time or 7 months' time, it doesn't change much. And actually it changes everything. So again, we need more people all over the world, from the private sector, in the public sector, and we need more pragmatism.
Well, I certainly agree with you, but I'd also add, Anna, that I've seen situations where when new vision, new leadership, maybe some from private sector or outside of government come in and start to take new ways, certainly there's resistance. We all feel that, we see it. But I also find that there are some people within the public administration who step up, who are inspired by it, who say, you know what, this is why I got into public service in the first place. This is why I wanted to be part of this, and now it's happening. And so when you can find that talent, that energy that bubbles up from within these public administrations, find those people and partner with them, then you really have that dynamic duo I was talking about before between yourself and your president. So, Anna, on a personal note, you and your partner have a young son. By the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
As a father myself, it really is this sort of magic thing you can't explain to someone, how it fundamentally changes your life and your outlook. With that in mind, what are some things you most wish for him and for all Serbians in the future?
Well, and again, thank you. Is the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life, and the joy that I feel every day when I go home is unbelievable, really. But what firstly, again, believing in what we do, and again, President Vučić and myself and all of our teams and all of the people who are in the government and in the public administration pushing for all of these changes, I have to say that I wish that we actually succeed, because I believe that Serbia will become a better place for people to live in. But overall, because I do care so much about education, I hope that we all succeed in supporting their development and growing next generation, nurturing next generations as people who are not afraid to change things, and as people who are not afraid to try new things out, but also, and perhaps most importantly, people who believe in fundamental change, and also talking about Serbia in the capacity, in the ability of their country to change. And I think that is what we've missed in Serbia for such a long time. People did not feel that Serbia can actually change, that everything is status quo. And I think that when people feel that they're empowered to change things and that things can fundamentally change, then they can do whatever they want to do. And it's their country to change it.
Nothing touches our hearts more than when we see the opportunity to provide to our children, to help them become part of the future of the world as opposed to the past. And I think the efforts that you and your colleagues are making are giving them a real opportunity to do that, to find great opportunities for their children. And there's nothing more important than that. So we're coming down to the end of our conversation today, and I hope, Anna, it's not the last conversation we'll have. This has really been fantastic.
Likewise.
I'd like to ask one last question, and I did not prepare you for this at all. Please provide us with 3 words that describe how you feel about the future. Hyphens are acceptable. And by the way, don't explain them. Don't say why. 3 words to describe how you feel about the future. Hyphens are acceptable.
Bright. Challenging. People-centered.
Bright, challenging, people-centered. We learned today from Anna that if you're going to be prime minister, you'd better be an optimist. But we also learned, maybe it's time to do something for your country, something to help your community, something beyond yourself. There couldn't be anything more important, because if none of us do that, then all of us lose. And at the beginning of a great vision, so many people will laugh. So many people will sign it off as just another flight of fancy. But if you build trust, if you show success, people will follow. If you find belief out of skepticism, then people will be willing to try things, to try and test and find what works and scale it up and make life better. This notion that the Prime Minister shared of opening creative spaces and hubs around Serbia that brings not just technology, which is essential, but also creative and arts and all the other aspects of human life, not only are essential from an instrumental perspective for the business and economic thriving of Serbia's future, but also figuratively to me, because those creative spaces reflect in a metaphorical way the creative spaces that might be unlocked within all Serbians and ultimately within our lives at large in the world. Those creative spaces are the ones that help us determine the futures we desire to create. As Anna said, let's succeed. Let's make this world a better place in which to live. It's up to us. And finally, I'd like to conclude with some words and advice from one of our presidents many years ago, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt said, "Succeed or fail, it is that you are in the arena that matters." Anna Brnabić, you're in the arena, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure.